Let's see here, connecting to the cloud. All right, looks like it's recording. So, hey, I am excited to introduce a good friend of mine, long-term friend, as we talk a little bit more about the good news of our limits. My friend is Dr. Tanita Maddox, living in the wonderful Spokane, Washington. She's Associate Regional Director for Eastern Washington, Idaho, Montana, Vermont. Where are you at again? I mean, you do so much. Yeah.
So our region covers Central Eastern Washington, North Idaho, Montana, and North Wyoming. And I get to really work with folks in North Idaho and Central Eastern Washington.
Okay. And a pretty sizable mileage reimbursement form, I would imagine.
Yes.
Okay. Well, great. Well, Tanita and I have been good friends for, I think, decades, and I'm excited to be your friend and also just see how God has given you wisdom to move through different seasons of life and adding things on and all sorts of things. And so I invited Dr. Maddox on today to talk to us a little bit about serving God and also raising a family in the midst of that and how that relates to our limits. So thanks for coming on to chat and talk to folks about that today. And so, yeah, I mean, just in general, how have your human limits affected kind of your walk with Christ, your faith, just kind of the bigger picture before we get more specifically into ministry and family and things like that?
Well, honestly, I would say the idea of limits is probably what helped me come to faith in the beginning. This idea that I did not have to be perfect. In fact, I wasn't expected to be perfect, that it didn't have to do anything to earn God's love or have value in his eyes. That kind of message of hearing about Jesus and going, hey, the first thing you need to do is just admit that you're not perfect, that you can't do this, and that you can put your faith in Jesus to really fill in that gap for you. That really was what probably brought me to the faith in the beginning, was the good news of the limits is really the good news of Jesus meeting me where I was at.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, I mean, I basically, I thought for a long time I brought something to the table. I was like, I put a lot of faith in Christ at that first moment, and I'm not. And then I was like, wait, I really didn't bring anything to the table, and so. Yeah, it's been just such a wonder to see God's grace in my faith and all that. And so, as you've worked more in the midst of your ministry, and as also being a mother, being a parent, what are some lessons that you've learned in regard to kind of your limits and how you've navigated those different seasons of life and chapters?
Yeah, well, so the working mom world the mom world is a weird world, and the working mom world is a weird world. And any mom that's out there knows what I'm talking about, because there's just weird expectations of how you're supposed to do things and who you're supposed to be and all the things you're supposed to balance. And there's a lot of messages that really are telling us that you're not enough. If you're not doing this perfectly, you're not enough. You need to be the perfect wife and the perfect mom, have the perfect home, have the perfect meal plan, make sure you're active and perform not just good at work, but be the best at what you're doing. So all those messages are kind of constantly coming in. They're coming in through Pinterest and social media and all over the place they're coming at us. And so when I became a mother, when that kind of natural change of what my capacity was, what my talents were, what my gifts were shifted, the first thing that comes is the message that I can't do what I did before, so I must not be enough anymore. So if I can't keep up the pace of the things I was holding on to, the things I was doing, the activity level I had before, I'm now less, and less is worse. So that's really the message, that I feel like that was around, and, just part of what we live in. And so understanding limits and going, well, actually, it's just a change of direction. It's not that I'm less than I was before. It's that I'm different than I was before. And so understanding, if I kept trying to be the person I used to be before I had children, then I wasn't really accepting what the Lord was doing in my life in that moment. He made me a mother, and that really changed a lot of parts of who I was, how I think, how I feel, how I process things, even how I see people. And so really it wasn't so much of accepting I'm just less of who I used to be. It's really shifting the direction. And that limit kind of gives a border. like stop running against this wall. We're going to move the river this way. So flow this way, accept that. And then there's a fullness that came out of that direction of understanding I am a different person, and how I live my life, how my faith is expressed, how my gifts are expressed are just going to be different than they were before. So I would say the limits are really good because they really help me accept who I am in this moment and honor that with the Lord, instead of thinking that the old person I was the ideal version of me.
Mm-hmm. What are, you said I can't continue what I did before. What are some things that you kind of lamented that I can't continue to do this? What are some things that you've had to let go of that as you chose kind of to alter your direction in some things? Like, tell me about some of those things that you had to let go of or that you couldn't continue doing.
Yeah, I will say there was a physical change, an emotional change, and a spiritual change. Physically, that's pretty natural when you're pregnant and all of a sudden have babies, and it's like to the bottom, everything's just shifting. So my body didn't belong to me anymore. And I just physically couldn't be active from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day. I couldn't be running around all over town. I didn't have the same kind of availability to just leave and go and pick up and move and those kinds of things, have that high activity level. Even something as simple as coaching a sport at the school went out the window because I just don't have the hours to be able to stand outside, yell at the top of my lungs and keep going like that. So my body had limits now, and those kids put extra physical limits on being home and being around them. Emotionally, I think I had more emotional space to carry hard things, carry difficult situations, even difficult people, dare I say. People that draw from me, they're taking from me. And it's part of ministry, right? We give ourselves to a lot of people, but I realized there was an emotional limit to what I could allow be a part of my inner circle, and how much I could give away to others, because there was another part of my emotional life that was now being pulled to something else. And I would say even spiritually, there were two big practices that I think I always held as the main ones, which is you study your Bible and you spend time alone with the Lord. And when in reality, like if we look at Richard J. Foster, right, he lists 9 in his book. There's lots of spiritual disciplines, but those 2 are held up. And when I was like sleep deprived and like could open a book and I could maybe tell you what the words were, but there was nothing happening in my brain. Like I just couldn't process things. There was no space to like have depth of meditation and things getting in there. There's no margin for solitude because my hours were cut between like trying to nurse and balance childcare and fit everything in a compressed amount of time. And so even spiritually, I found, hey, these practices aren't working for me. What are other spiritual disciplines I can engage with where I can meet the Lord instead of just relying on these 2 things? So I found the practice of silence, just having like throughout my day, 30 seconds here, a minute here, where I could just take a deep breath and ask the Lord, like, what do you want me to hear from me? Or do I need to hear from you in this moment right now? And that created a different pattern of listening to the Holy Spirit than I'd ever had before. Worship became big for me because I didn't have enough energy, cognition to be able to come up with my own words for the Lord to express how I was feeling or what I was thinking. And so worship became a replacement for that, to go, let me listen to this. I can pray this to the Lord. So those are kind of a couple of things that just really had to shift with the new reality of my life.
Yeah, that's fascinating, especially as kind of when I think about limits. I don't know. I have this beautiful cup. It says Woodleaf, go Woodleaf, on here, and you can only fill it up so much, right? And so I'm kind of I've never really understood the idea until recently, even though everyone says it, of like the zero sum game, and you go like, well, okay, so our capacity might be however much this holds. And so, physically, maybe at my best, I can only, go this much, but also like emotionally or spiritually, I might only have this much to offer. And so in different seasons of life, maybe the most obvious one might be, the one that came to mind for me was emotional, because I feel like I'm a pretty low bandwidth emotional person, you know me. They're there, I promise, but they're
there. I can attest to that.
Tanita might be one of the few people that see me cry, but or get angry. I don't know. But yeah. But when you add people into your inner circle, which is one of the things I talk about in the book, like being really mindful about the people, especially as you grow your family. My children and my immediate family are going to take up an increasing amount of like what I have room for emotionally. And so as I seek to want to love other people outside of that, I just have to be realistic that I might have less emotional bandwidth to offer other people. And it sounds like that was something that you had to kind of recalibrate towards your own expectations of yourself, that I do have stuff to give, but I'm giving it in different places now. And so when it comes to ministering or my neighbors or whomever, I just have to be okay that I don't have as much as maybe I'd even want to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we see that with grief too, right? Or anytime we're kind of pushed into a place where we just have a less to give, it becomes really obvious the people in our life that really give to us and where we just don't have any more to give somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's other people that kind of get at the front of the line.
Yes.
Or something like that, right? And maybe demanding because they're knocking at your door like, Mom, Dad, like, I need you, or something else like that. Yeah, there's a lot of demands like that. Well, here's another question, a little bit different. Just as a parent, like, what do you want your children to learn about their God-given limits? I know that you are incredibly high achieving, as is your husband, Ashley. You guys do so many things. And so they're watching, mom and dad do so much. And certainly this world tells them they can do anything they want and all that. And there's a nice sentiment in that, but there's also an unrealistic sentiment in that. I don't know, like, how have you thought about your own calibration and recognition of your limits and these sorts of things? What do you want your children to learn about their own God-given limits?
So it's interesting because also my academic work is in Generation Z. And one of the things we study is the fact that what this generation and younger, so my kids are getting this too, is there's a constant message coming out to kids today that says you're not enough. So whether through that social media where we're measuring people, right, in likes and follows and retweets and that kind of thing, whether it's marketing that's coming at them, that's telling them, hey, you won't be enough until you have this thing. And really there's this high value for accomplishments and success to create personal identity. And so all of that is really saying limits are a bad thing. Like, you will never be enough. You need this thing. You can always be more. You should be more. If you're not more, then you are less. And so that message that's coming at kids really 24/7 because of their access to technology and social media really has me going, well, okay, you can't be everything. So what is it about you that's special about you? You can't be all things to all people all the time. So even just limiting, like sometimes at dinner, we'll say, what do you like about yourself? And so we have to make everyone verbalize the things that are specific to them. And then even we'll go around and what do you like about this person? So we'll say, hey, everyone, what do you like about Daddy? And we'll go around. And part of it is we want them to be able to focus in on how they're specifically and uniquely made. And that uniqueness, the things that we like about ourselves, the things that we like about each other, that those are really specific to them, that's how God made them to be. And so to not have to change who they are to fit all the other descriptors that are at the table. Like, you're not meant to be Daddy, you're not meant to be your brother, you're not meant to be me. You're just meant to be you. And so how do we help you live into the fullness of who you are with the specifics of how God made you? So really what I want them to do is not have to create an identity based on outward success, outward affirmation, or outward circumstances. I want them to be able to create an identity based on who God says they are. And in that limited, more specific, uniquely made place, that they are part of a body, they're part of a community, they're part of a larger group. And the best way they can serve that group is by being who they're supposed to be in Jesus and not try to be everybody and have everybody's gifts.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Like a real awareness of kind of who you are and who God made you and kind of your moment right now, rather than maybe all the other messages and kind of alternatives that could be there.
Absolutely. Like, and part of that's owning our weaknesses, right? Like, so we say, oh, Mommy made a mistake. They know one of the jokes is mommy makes the wrong turn when she drives the car all of the time. Like it's like, oh, mommy makes the wrong turns. Mommy shouldn't give directions. And it's not that like, oh, mommy, you should be better at directions. This is just a part of who mommy is. And so mommy has a phone and like that has a GPS system on there, or or sometimes actually my 6-year-old would give me directions. It's like, you need to turn here. And not get mad about that, right? Like, hey, you don't give me directions. You're 6, I'm mom. Like, I'm the one driving the car, but just go, you're right, buddy. Like, this is where I need you to help me, so we can make this place together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I might not have the directions on my mind, but if you wanted a hour-long dissertation on Gen Z and the latest research, I've got that for you. Something like that.
Yes.
Yeah. I've multiple students and young people that I've worked with in the last few weeks, or even just this last week. I've had 2 specific conversations with folks that are working through anxiety and going to counseling and receiving some input about that. And they have a practice that they've independently, they both told me about this, 2 people I'm thinking of, about recognizing where you're at. And so they'll say, what's 5 things I can see right now? What are 4 things that I can smell? And they kind of go through their senses. But the practice, I think, is largely based in where am I at right now? Like just being aware of yourself and your place in life. And it sounds like what you're doing at the dinner table or in the car when you go around, what is it that you like about each other, is not like about what could be or in fantasy land, but like, where are we? What does today look like? And what do we appreciate about this moment? There's some similar parallels about, just kind of being present, I suppose, in who we are right now.
Yeah. I mean, that probably talks to, I think we probably talk about conflict and anxiety being that gap between what reality is and what the ideal is, right? What the reality is, what the expectation is, and all that in between is where we get in trouble.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you so much, Tanita, for talking through a couple things related to the good news of our limits. Sharing some advice and certainly things that I haven't thought of. I got some notes here. I'll be thinking through those. Yes, thank you for joining us, and I'll be sharing this online with friends. So appreciate it.
Great book, Sean. I share it with all the moms I know too, because it has got a great, good gospel message of who they're supposed to be and who they're designed to be. So thank you for writing this.
Thank you, Tanita. All right, appreciate it. Bye.